In his late 20s, Marco, who grew up in Port Douglas, had arranged to meet with his best friend there. The drive, which takes about an hour, is famously scenic and features some of the breathtaking natural beauty for which Far North Queensland is renowned. The route winds along the Captain Cook Highway, offering stunning coastal views of the Coral Sea on one side and lush rainforest on the other. Along the way, there are beautiful beaches like Palm Cove and Ellis Beach, popular with both tourists and locals. About 2/3 into his journey, Marco Heidenreich noticed a familiar car as he drove past Wangetti Beach, a 4-kilometer stretch of coastline nestled behind dense trees and forest. In the southern car park of the beach was a pale blue 2009 Mitsubishi Lancer belonging to Marco's 24-year-old girlfriend, Toyah Cordingley. Marco knew Toyah planned to walk her dog Indy at Wangetti Beach that afternoon, as she had left their shared home just 15 minutes before him. Marco and Toyah were both passionate about dogs, having met while volunteering at an animal shelter. They lived together in Cairns and cared for 3 dogs between them. Marco paused at a petrol station to grab a 6-pack of beer from a bottle shop in Port Douglas before meeting up with his longtime friend, Joel Cumin. Together, they drove roughly 13 kilometers south to the Mowbray Valley, an area known for its rainforest trails and waterfalls. Along with Marco's 2 pet dogs, Jersey and Bentley, they embarked on a hike towards Spring Creek Falls, a hidden yet well-loved local swimming location. As they descended toward the base of the falls in the late afternoon, a sudden yelp caught Marco's attention. He quickly realized that Jersey, his red heeler, had vanished. It seemed she had spotted a scrub turkey or some other creature and dashed into the forest in pursuit. Despite calling out for her, Jersey did not return. Determined to find her, Marco and Joel began searching diligently but without success. As daylight started to fade into night, they were unwilling to cease their search efforts. Around 7 p.m., they visited 2 friends' homes to borrow some flashlights before heading back out to the falls in search of the missing dog. Deeply upset about his dog's disappearance, Marco tried calling his girlfriend Toyah at 7:04 p.m. to inform her, but she didn't answer. The call didn't even ring and went straight to voicemail. Marco attempted to reach her 9 more times, yet all his calls were left unanswered. By about 9 p.m., Marco and Joel decided to end their search for Jersey and return to their friend Toby Petrak's Port Douglas home, who had lent them one of the flashlights. They sat around having a beer, with Marco visibly distressed. Besides worrying about Jersey, he was also upset and frustrated by the lack of communication from Toyah. After some time, Marco got back into his car to drive home to Cairns. As he passed Wangetti Beach's southern car park for the second time that day, he noticed something alarming. Parked in the same spot as it had been roughly 7 hours earlier was Toyah's Mitsubishi Lancer. Marco Heidenreich pulled over for a closer inspection. Nearby, a few other vehicles, including a camper van and 3 4-wheel drives, were also parked. Marco walked up to Toyah's car. The doors were unlocked. Neither Toyah nor her dog Indy was inside. Marco dashed down to the beach, racing along the sand, shouting Toyah's name as he went. The vast stretch of white sand was bordered by the Coral Sea on one side and dense, marshy scrubland on the other. Mountains blanketed in rainforests towered in the background. After searching about a kilometer north of the car park, Marco called his friend Toby, whose house he had just left, and told him what he had discovered. Toby advised Marco to contact the police. Marco dialed 000 to report his missing girlfriend, while Toby, his brother Max, and their friend Joel Cumin rushed to Wangetti Beach to help Marco search for Toyah. 4 young men spent around 45 minutes searching the car park and beach in the dark until the police arrived and suggested they head home. The police had already examined the parking area and surroundings, noting that little more could be done until daylight. Meanwhile, Toyah's family was informed that her car was discovered at Wangetti Beach. but Toyah herself was missing. When Marco returned to the empty home he shared with Toyah, her father, Toyah Cordingley, arrived on his motorcycle. Troy spoke briefly with Marco to gather more information before heading to Wangetti Beach to search for his daughter. Toyah's mother, Vanessa Gardner, who was separated from Troy, was awakened in the early morning by her 18-year-old son, Jack, who informed her that his sister was missing. Both of them rushed to Wangetti Beach, arriving around 3 a.m. Despite calling out desperately for their daughter and sister, Toyah's family could do little more until dawn. They anxiously waited at a picnic bench for the sun to rise. By 5:30 a.m., there was enough light to resume their search. Troy went south along the beach, while Vanessa headed north. Both called out loudly for Toyah, but silence was their only response. Vanessa made her way to the small sand dunes, remembering it as the place where Toyah once buried her pet cat. She knew that sometimes Toyah visited Wangetti Beach to pay her respects to her cherished pet. As she walked along the sand in search of her daughter, Vanessa turned her gaze towards some nearby shrubs. Peering into the bushes, she noticed Toyah's dog, Indy, tied to a tree. Indy, a Tibetan Mastiff and Husky mix, stood quietly without making a sound upon seeing Vanessa. Expecting to find her daughter napping on the ground beside her loyal dog, Vanessa hurried over. Perhaps Toyah just needed some time alone, away from everything. But as Vanessa reached Indy, it became clear that something more sinister had occurred. Toyah was nowhere in sight, and Indy was left in a manner that Toyah would never have allowed. The dog's leash was secured so tightly to a tree that she couldn't even sit down. And it was tied in a firm double granny knot that Vanessa had trouble unraveling. With a sinking feeling, Vanessa realized something terrible might have happened to her daughter. She called for Troy's assistance, and he quickly came over to untie Indy. Although Indy appeared glad to see familiar faces, she remained unusually quiet. Vanessa took Indy's leash in hand, hoping the dog might lead them to Toyah. Instead, Indy led them further into the dense brush. Toyah's brother, Jack, marked the spot where Indy had been tied and continued searching for his sister alongside their mother. As Vanessa's phone battery began to die, Jack drove her home to recharge it. At the house, they were met by police officers and state emergency service volunteers conducting searches. Jack then went back to Wangetti Beach with a uniformed officer to show them where Indy had been found. The beach was now teeming with police officers and volunteer searchers, while a rescue helicopter scanned the area overhead for Toyah. Meanwhile, Toyah's boyfriend, Marco, returned to the beach to continue searching for her. He joined Toyah Cordingley, walking up and down the beach, calling out Toyah's name. At one point, Troy directly asked Marco if he had any involvement in Toyah's disappearance. "Don't mess around, yes or no?" Troy asked. "I'm upset and I have to ask." Marco replied, "No, this isn't my fault." The two men then noticed a hat partially buried in the sand near the water's edge. It was tagged with the words Tasmanian Wilderness, and they immediately recognized it as Toyah's. At this moment, Marco agreed to return to the police station to answer some questions. He brought Indy with him, where she was provided some dog squad pants while Marco talked to the detectives. Meanwhile, Troy continued his search along the beach, exploring an isolated stretch over a kilometer from where Toyah had left her car. The area was particularly remote. Cairns is known for its tropical savanna climate, which means temperatures can range from warm to hot. Even though it was still early morning, the heat was already building. Looking for relief from the sun, Toyah Cordingley decided to take a break under a tree before resuming his search. While resting in the shade about 30 meters from the spot where Indy had been discovered, something strange caught his eye. There was an unusual sand formation near the edge of the scrub. It appeared unnatural and stood slightly higher than the surrounding sand. Troy knelt down and started to clear away some of the sand. After moving about 3 handfuls, his hand hit something solid. As he brushed more sand away, a human foot became visible beneath the surface. Startled and horrified, Troy staggered back and cried out for help. Police Officer Dale Jepson heard Troy's calls and hurried over to assist. When Officer Jepson arrived, and saw Toyah lying in a shallow grave. He checked her body and confirmed that the young woman was deceased. He then signaled to the rescue helicopter above, indicating that Toyah had been located. Toyah Cordingley suddenly collapsed and had to be assisted away from the scene. Police officers were busy photographing and documenting the crime scene. Images were taken of the mound before Toyah was removed. Nearby, 3 logs and some bark were placed at the base of the gravesite, and a stick was partially inserted into the sand mound covering Toyah. At the base of the mound, a set of toes pointed towards the water. A crime scene was established, and forensic investigators meticulously excavated Toyah's body, sifting the sand used to cover her for any potential evidence. Toyah had been wearing a floral-patterned white bikini. The bikini top was heavily stained with blood. Her throat had been slashed 4 times, and she had suffered 26 stab wounds. Most of these wounds were concentrated on her left torso, some of which penetrated her heart, lungs, and a kidney. Toyah's fingers, hands, and left forearm had defensive wounds, indicating she fought back against her killer. Additionally, several strands of light brown hair were found clutched in one of her hands. The attack was exceptionally brutal and violent, likely carried out with a knife. The weapon didn't appear to be particularly large, and Toyah's wounds suggested it wasn't serrated. An examination of Toyah's body showed no signs of sexual assault. Near the scene, only an orange glow stick, which had not been linked to the crime, and Toyah's selfie stick were found. None of her other possessions, such as her phone, clothing, or beach towel, were located at the site. Several bloodstains were detected around the burial location, including a significant patch roughly 8 meters away. There were no indications that Toyah's body had been dragged through the sand. Further investigation of the beach led police to discover 2 knives. However, neither contained any blood nor matched the murder weapon. The news of Troy's devastating find spread rapidly. Toyah's brother, Jack, learned about the discovery while he was at the beach. He rushed back to the car park where his mother, Vanessa, had just returned after charging her phone, shaking his head and saying, "She's gone." Vanessa later recounted how, at that moment, she felt as if time had come to a standstill, gripped by an overwhelming sense of fear. "It was surreal. This isn't what I wanted. I was unable to think at all." As the police investigation got underway, officers began retracing Toyah's steps on Sunday, October 21. For the 24-year-old, it was just a typical Sunday. She spent the morning at her home in the suburb of Wari, where she lived with Marco Heidenreich. The couple enjoyed some gardening and quality time together before Toyah set off late in the morning for a short drive of 7 kilometers to Cairns city center. There she visited Rusty Markets, a well-known spot in Cairns. CCTV footage captured her around midday, holding a large striped shopping bag close to her chest with both hands. Her long, dyed blonde hair was tied back in a messy bun, and she wore shorts with a light-colored crocheted undershirt over a white floral bikini. Toyah spent about 30 minutes shopping before returning home to inform Marco of her plan to walk her dog, Indy. Around 1:30 p.m., she set out with Indy, driving approximately 45 minutes north to Wangetti Beach, a perfect spot for walking her dog. Though situated by a busy highway, the beach featured a scenic lookout near the northern parking area that attracted tourists for photos. Wangetti Beach was less crowded and more secluded compared to the region's well-known beaches, allowing Toyah to let Indy roam freely without a leash. Despite Toyah's phone being missing, its records indicated she arrived at the beach around 2:15 p.m. that day. She parked in the southern lot and headed to the sand with Indy. During their walk, she unfortunately encountered her assailant. While the beach was serene, it wasn't completely deserted, and the tragic event likely occurred in broad daylight. Experts estimate that she was killed between 3:30 and 6:30 p.m. It seems more probable that the killing occurred towards the earlier part of this time frame, as Toyah's phone began pinging off various cell towers starting at 4:51 p.m. This suggests the killer left Wangetti Beach with her device. The perpetrator also buried her in a relatively exposed area, making the act even more audacious. Toyah had no known conflicts with anyone in her life. Friends and family described her as a warm and loving person, known for her kindness and generosity. She deeply cared about the well-being of her family and friends. Working at a combined pharmacy and health food store, Toyah was well regarded by both colleagues and customers. On Facebook, she often shared posts on issues important to her, such as the significance of kindness and raising awareness about male violence against women. Toyah was also passionate about the environment, advocating for animals and rescuing injured birds, possums, and even a baby python. Just 3 days before her murder, she posted a meme on Facebook stating, "I may seem like a nice person, but if you mess with my dogs, I will break out a level of crazy that will make your nightmares seem like a happy place." Toyah captioned her post with the statement, "Believe it." In her free time, she volunteered at Paws and Claws Animal Shelter in Port Douglas, where she met her partner, Marco. When the news broke that Toyah had been found, Marco was at the police station speaking to detectives. Around 9 a.m., Marco was informed that his girlfriend had been murdered. He was upset that he wasn't informed earlier and that others had learned about Toyah's fate before him. He also expressed concern about paying his rent without Toyah's support. "How does it work with the government? Do I get any help from them?" he asked. "It's terrible. She does so much for me." Marco also mentioned to a detective that his stepfather was a retired Cairns police sergeant named Andrew Lures. Detective Sergeant Andrew Worth noted familiarity with Lures, referring to him by his nickname, Lurcy, though he later clarified he didn't know him well. Detectives discovered that although Marco was upset the previous evening about not being able to reach Toyah all afternoon, she had actually sent him a message at 3:17 p.m. Marco revealed that he hadn't seen the message until he noticed Toyah's car still parked at the Wangetti Beach car park and began searching for her in the dark. He couldn't explain why he missed the unread text while attempting to call Toyah 17 times earlier that night. As Toyah's boyfriend, Marco was naturally the initial person of interest for investigators. He was released that morning, yet in the following days, his phone and car were seized for forensic analysis. Marco cooperated with these procedures, agreeing to a mouth swab for DNA. During a subsequent visit to his home, police photographed Marco's body. They observed a small cut on his foot which he claimed happened while searching for his missing dog, Jersey, at Spring Creek Falls. Police offered assistance in searching for Jersey, who was later found by backpackers 2 days after she went missing, unharmed but with worn paw pads. The shirt Marco had been wearing was tested for blood, yielding positive results from 3 small stains on the inside back. There was also a small, fingernail-sized mark on the front of the shirt's neck. However, nothing incriminating was found in his vehicle. In the end, Marco was exonerated due to having an alibi. On the day in question, he had been hiking with his friend Joel Cummin, who had taken 8 photographs during their excursion. The timestamps on these photos ranged from 3:41 p.m. to 5:09 p.m., placing Marco 19 kilometers away from the scene of Toyah's murder. It would have taken him half an hour to drive from that location to Wangetti Beach. A police digital forensics analyst then dedicated hundreds of hours to scrutinizing the photos, confirming that neither the timestamps nor the geolocation data had been tampered with. With Marco no longer considered a suspect, the investigation shifted focus to the last text message Toyah had sent him, which contained an intriguing clue. The message read, "I forgot that I'm picking up my friend from the airport tonight. I think it's around 7 or 8, just so you know," followed by a heart emoji. The friend Toyah was scheduled to collect was unfamiliar to Marco, a young man in his mid-20s named Tyson Franklin. Tyson, a podiatrist, had met Toyah only weeks earlier in early October, when she visited his office for an appointment. Although initially a professional interaction, they quickly connected over their shared enthusiasm for the Harry Potter books. They took a Harry Potter quiz together and exchanged phone numbers, saving each other in their contacts as Gryffindor and Slytherin. Toyah's phone records indicated a flurry of communication, with hundreds of texts exchanged between her and Tyson over the following weeks.
One day, while Marco was in Melbourne, they visited a local waterfall together. After that trip, their text exchanges became more intimate. Toyah expressed, "I've never instantly connected with someone before. Usually, I have to build that connection over time. But with you, I felt it immediately." Tyson boldly asked Toyah, "I know what you're like when we're out and about, but I'm curious about what you're like in the bedroom." Toyah confided in Tyson about her struggles with Marco, describing him as an angry person, "Not at me, just at the world, which I understand. But it often affects my calm when I get home, and those emotions are directed at me." Toyah revealed to Tyson her desire to move into her own place, though she was uncertain about affording it on her own. While Marco was still away, Tyson spent the night on Toyah's couch on Sunday, October 14, exactly a week before she was murdered. Their conversation continued, with Toyah affirming, "Even after everything, I still want you in my life." When Marco returned from his trip, he sensed a change in Toyah. 3 days before her death, she messaged Tyson, "He noticed something different about me. He asked if I was still happy because he feared losing me to someone else. I was just trying to be myself, but he sensed there was something unusual about me." When Tyson left town shortly after, Toyah had promised to pick him up from Cairns Airport on the evening of Sunday, October 21. However, she never made it there. Her phone records showed Tyson had attempted to call Toyah several times after he arrived. Airport CCTV confirmed that Tyson had gotten off his plane and exited Cairns Airport. After Toyah didn't arrive, he proceeded to the Uber pickup area to arrange a ride home. When police interviewed Tyson regarding his relationship with Toyah, he provided an Uber receipt for the journey. Tyson acknowledged a flirtation with Toyah and mentioned there was chemistry between them. According to Tyson, Toyah was dissatisfied with her romantic relationship. Detectives ultimately excluded Tyson Franklin as a suspect in Toyah's murder, but while they examined his electronic devices, they uncovered some troubling information. He had repeatedly searched for news articles about investigations and prosecutions related to child sexual abuse offenders. He had also searched for child sexual abuse material, CSAM. During a police interview the following month, Tyson admitted to accessing CSAM. He explained that he was attracted to petite females and that this attraction led him to seek images of underage girls. He had screenshotted pictures he found and later deleted them to conceal his actions. In total, he accessed CSAM over 2,200 times. Some of the material was described as extremely disturbing and included acts of sadism towards young boys and even a baby. Tyson further confessed to discussing rape fantasies online and accessing rape and murder porn on a website where such content is shared anonymously. Tyson admitted to investigators that he struggled with an uncontrollable urge to seek out the material, leading him to intentionally avoid children. A clinical psychologist diagnosed him with pedophilic disorder. Consequently, Tyson Franklin faced charges and pleaded guilty to 1 count of accessing child sexual abuse material via a carriage service and 1 count of knowingly possessing child exploitation material. His sentence included 15 months in prison, after which he was released on a 2-year, $1,000 good behavior bond with a conviction recorded. Furthermore, the Queensland Civil and Administrative Tribunal prohibited him from applying for registration as a health practitioner for 4 years. In a separate case, with the primary suspects in Toyah's murder eliminated, detectives broadened their search. They called on the public for assistance, encouraging anyone who had seen or interacted with Toyah on the day of her murder or noticed anything unusual to come forward. Their focus was particularly on individuals who might have seen her at Rusty's Markets or Wangetti Beach. Women who had experienced unsettling encounters with strangers over the past 2 years were also urged to report these incidents. This appeal garnered a significant response from the community. Cairns and nearby areas were deeply shaken by Toyah's tragic death. Known for being free of violent crimes, the region attracted both domestic and international tourists, while locals enjoyed a simple, connected lifestyle at a slower pace than in Australia's larger cities. Beaches were integral to the local culture, so the thought of a young woman being murdered in such a public and everyday setting as walking her dog was hard to fathom. Women's sense of security was noticeably affected, even among those who had large dogs like Toyah's Tibetan Mastiff Husky mix. Despite its natural allure, Wangetti Beach had a darker aspect. Reports to the Cairns Post indicated that some men engaged in lewd behavior in the secluded sand dunes. The beach's vastness and isolation seemed to embolden this kind of predatory conduct. Local residents reached out to Crime Stoppers with their observations and suspicions, which resulted in about 1,400 reports. The police also collected many witness statements. Among those questioned were 8 individuals who had visited Wangetti Beach on October 21, 2018. They explored both the southern and northern car parks and noticed a large number of people coming and going throughout the day. The crowd varied in age and appearance. Some had dogs while others did not. An Indigenous woman who parked in the northern car park around 2 p.m. reported feeling uneasy when a man stared at her. Initially, she thought he was Indigenous and greeted him, but then realized he was of Indian descent. Her partner, who also saw the man, disagreed, thinking the man was Caucasian. A couple visiting Wangetti from Cairns noted seeing a slender, fair-haired young woman with a beach bag walking a large unleashed dog. After hearing news about Toyah's murder, they recognized her as the woman they'd seen. Approximately 10 minutes later, they noticed a stocky man in his 40s watching them. He had tanned skin, dark hair, and wore beige trousers, odd attire for a hot beach day. He stared at them for several minutes, making the husband consider confronting him if he didn't stop. Eventually, the man looked away. In the southern car park, a man who had stopped for a drink noticed a young woman wearing a top with holes similar to Toyah's crocheted top from that day. She was being observed by a man with shoulder-length dark hair. Another person reported seeing a large, professional-looking camera appear from scent. Bushes between 4 and 5 p.m. A 47-year-old named Evan contacted Crime Stoppers about seeing someone suspicious in a high-visibility shirt walking out of scent. Bushes earlier that month. His call was spurred by a worrying conversation with his ex-wife. She came across an article in the Cairns Post detailing an incident where a public masturbator was photographed at Wangetti Beach. This sparked concern that the individual mentioned might be Evan. Evan, known to her as a nudist who occasionally visited the beach, had once left his phone number on the windshield of a female nudist's car. She informed the police about Evan's bouts of deep depression, during which he could be dangerous, and mentioned his general dislike of women. Evan recently sent his ex a text stating he felt the need to go pigging, referring to hunting feral pigs, which are a major issue in Far North Queensland. He was known to hunt at Wangetti Beach, which had areas where feral pigs were often found, and he also had a history of violence. Following the warning from his ex about possibly becoming a suspect in Toyah's murder, Evan contacted Crime Stoppers. He admitted visiting Wangetti Beach nude, but denied ever masturbating there or spying on women from the dunes. He was dealing with depression and was under a psychologist's care. Evan clarified that his dislike extended to people in general, not specifically toward women. On Sunday, October 21, Evan claimed he did not hunt at Wangetti Beach, but instead was at his mother's house with his children from 1 to 5 p.m. Investigators verified his movements through traffic camera footage showing him heading north from Cairns in his red Land Cruiser to a shopping center around 5:20 p.m., where he made an ATM withdrawal before returning to Cairns. His vehicle was never seen traveling towards Wangetti Beach that day. This evidence eventually led investigators to exclude him as a suspect. During their investigation, police conducted door-to-door inquiries and asked for DNA samples from residents near the beach. They secured DNA evidence from the crime scene, including from under Toyah's fingernails. Although they didn't test the hairs found in Toyah's hand, believing them to be hers, they identified an unknown male DNA profile on the stick partially buried at the scene and another different male profile on the selfie stick retrieved near the area. They hoped to find a match for one or all of their samples. Many community members voluntarily provided samples, but no matches were identified. Indy's leash and collar were also examined, and Marco Heidenreich's DNA was found on the leash. Since he regularly handled the dog, this detail wasn't considered significant evidence. Others submitted knives for forensic testing, including a professional fisherman who turned in over 15 knives. He mentioned that he usually carried a large knife while walking through a nearby creek, prepared for encounters with saltwater crocodiles, having recently spotted a 3-meter-long one there. None of the knives handed over were linked to the crime. Detectives believed that technological tools could potentially solve Toyah's murder. They speculated that Toyah's killer might have left a digital footprint, even if not physically seen. Toyah's phone was missing, but its records suggested the killer fled the scene with it. From 4:51 p.m. to 5:17 p.m., the phone connected to various cell towers at some distance from Wangetti Beach. Initially, it pinged near Buckham Point in Palm Cove, about 14 kilometers south of Wangetti Beach. The signal then moved south to a tower in Toyah Beach, 8 kilometers from Palm Cove, followed by another one in Smithfield, 5.5 kilometers further. The lack of further signals implied that the phone's battery had died. This information provided investigators with a potential route the killer likely took after leaving Wangetti Beach. Along this route, police identified 32 video cameras that could have recorded crucial evidence. These cameras included public, business, and residential ones. In early November, detectives accessed more precise phone data known as timing advance, which offered an estimated distance and direction of Toyah's phone from the towers at the time it pinged them. The phone moved at traffic speed, indicating that whoever had it in their car was following the speed limit. Using the timing advance data, detectives pinpointed a critical 5-minute window just after 5 p.m. at a specific intersection in Clifton Beach, just south of Palm Cove. The killer's vehicle would have passed through this chokepoint intersection, monitored by 2 traffic cameras capturing every southbound vehicle's footage. Police initially identified 219 vehicles passing through an intersection and narrowed it down to 70 after conducting timed runs at the choke point. They released pictures of these 70 vehicles, urging the drivers to come forward. About half did so and were eliminated from the investigation, leaving the other half. To investigate further, police checked additional traffic cameras to track where these vehicles went. Most of them took routes different from the one recorded on Toyah's phone, leading to their exclusion from the case. As the search continued, detectives focused on car 60, a distinctive blue Alfa Romeo 156 that matched Toyah's phone data and route. A registration search for this vehicle make and model in North Queensland resulted in only 3 matches. 2 owners were quickly eliminated from suspicion, but the third drew the detectives' attention. Car number 60 was registered to a blue Alfa Romeo owned by Rajwinder Singh, who lived in Innisfail, about 87 kilometers southeast of Cairns and 2 hours from Wangetti Beach. Rajwinder Singh was a 34-year-old man who lived with his wife Sukhdeep Kaur and their children. Born in 1984 in Punjab, India, Singh moved to Australia with his wife in 2009 following their arranged marriage. The couple initially stayed with Sukhdeep's sister before settling in Innisfail, a rural region in far north Queensland. Despite language barriers, Sukhdeep worked in banana plantations while Singh studied horticulture before transitioning to nursing. He became a nurse at Innisfail Hospital in 2012 and had been employed there since. Singh eventually gained Australian citizenship and had 3 children with Sukhdeep, 2 daughters and a son. His parents also moved to Australia to join the family, all adherents of the Sikh faith. Initiated Sikhs are required to carry a ceremonial knife called a kirpan as a symbol of spiritual honor and a commitment to protect the oppressed. However, Rajwinder Singh wasn't known for adhering to this practice. Detectives managed to secure CCTV footage of Singh's Alfa Romeo from earlier on October 21, enabling them to reconstruct his movements that day. At 10 o'clock that morning, he drove his father to the Sikh temple in Innisfail and dropped him off. Rajwinder Singh then drove an hour north to Cairns via the Bruce Highway, arriving at the Cairns Central Shopping Center in the CBD around midday. This shopping center was just 1 block from Rusty's Markets, where Toyah was seen on CCTV at roughly the same time, but there was no indication that she encountered Singh there. Cameras inside the shopping center showed Rajwinder Singh wandering about aimlessly, dressed in beige shorts, a pale blue polo shirt, and sandals. The 34-year-old had a stocky build with a prominent belly, closely cropped dark hair, and facial stubble. He spent some time in the food court eating a meal and was seen at one point leaning over a railing, watching people around him. Singh left the shopping center at approximately 12:40 p.m., with his blue Alfa Romeo caught on camera exiting the complex. Traffic cameras later captured it moving through Cairns CBD and heading north on the Captain Cook Highway toward Wangetti Beach just before 1:30 p.m. The car went unnoticed for several hours until 5:04 p.m. when it was recorded driving back south towards Cairns. Interestingly, it soon deviated from the most direct route south. At 5:19 p.m., 2 minutes after Toyah's phone made its final signal to the phone tower in Smithfield, Singh's car was filmed diverting to Lake Placid, about 6 km south, before turning around shortly after. Instead of taking a right at the turnoff for Innisfil, the car continued to the Cairns city, pound near another body of water. From there, it traveled south through the inland suburbs of Caravanica and Gordonvale, being caught on CCTV cameras in those areas. The car was spotted in Gordonvale around 6 p.m. before disappearing from view for almost 2 hours. At 7:46 p.m., the car arrived in Innisfil. However, instead of heading back to Singh's residence on Seymour Street, it veered west towards the headland of Flying Fish Point. Nearly an hour later, Singh's vehicle finally returned home. This behavior caught the detectives' attention as being particularly suspicious. CCTV footage revealed that Singh appeared aimless on the day Toyah Cordingley was murdered. He traveled to Cairns and then drove towards Wangetti Beach, taking an unusual route back around the timeframe when Toyah was killed. Toyah's phone signal mirrored his movements until it abruptly ceased after Singh took a detour to a waterway. Detectives also observed something intriguing about Rajwinder Singh's phone records. There was a 7-hour gap from 1:16 p.m. to 8:15 p.m., implying that the phone was either switched off, put in flight mode, or had a dead battery. Approximately 3 weeks into their investigation, detectives identified a person of interest they were eager to question. However, there was a significant obstacle. Rajwinder Singh had vanished. Singh's wife, Sukhdeep Kaur, disclosed that their marriage had been troubled for a while. They had been sleeping separately. Singh occupied his own room while Sukhdeep shared hers with their baby due to their differing schedules. Singh worked shifts at the hospital, and Sukhdeep was caring for the infant. In early 2018, Singh moved out to live with a cousin, leaving Sukhdeep distraught. She went to the cousin's house, pleading with her husband to return. After about 10 days, he did come back, but later indicated his desire for a divorce mid-year. Sukhdeep opposed this, as divorce was heavily criticized in their culture, and she believed it would bring shame upon both families. When Singh's parents discovered his intention to leave his wife, they advised against pursuing a divorce. On Sunday, October 21, 2018, Sukhdeep went to bed around 8:30 p.m. She didn't hear her husband come home before she fell asleep. The next morning, Singh abruptly informed Sukhdeep that he was leaving and would be back the following day. Since it was school holidays, Sukhdeep asked if she and their children could accompany him, but Singh simply said no and left without revealing his destination. That morning, a man named Rajkaran Singh was shopping at Bunnings, an Australian hardware and garden center chain, when his phone rang. It was his friend Rajwinder Singh, who was not related to him. They had met at a wedding in India before both moving to Australia, where they developed a friendship. Rajkaran answered the call, and Singh asked for a favor. Could Rajkaran give him a lift to the airport that day? He needed to fly to Sydney to visit his sister. Rajkaran agreed, and Singh arrived at his home in the Cairns suburb of Red Lynch later that day. He seemed in a hurry, asking Rajkaran immediately, "I'm late, can you drop me at the airport?" However, Rajkaran's parents insisted that Singh have a cup of tea with them before leaving. Singh drank his tea quickly, appearing quite stressed. Once finished, he and Rajkaran headed to the airport. Singh also requested if he could leave his blue Alfa Romeo at Rajkaran's house while gone, which Rajkaran agreed to. During their drive, Singh was busy scrolling on his phone as if looking for something. Rajkaran couldn't see the screen. Concerned, Rajkaran asked him, "Are you okay? You're looking very stressed." Knowing that Singh's sister had recently married, Rajkaran wondered if something urgent had happened that prompted Singh's sudden trip. Singh assured him that everything was fine and promised to explain once he returned. Rajkaran sensed the firmness in Singh's voice and decided not to press the issue further. He dropped Singh at the airport, planning to pick him up upon his return. Singh mentioned that his return date might change, but anticipated being back in 4 to 5 days. Upon arriving home, Rajkaran moved Singh's Alfa Romeo from the driveway to the street, expecting to hear from him soon. Rajkaran was in the process of applying to join the Army Reserves and had listed Singh as a reference. However, days passed with no contact from Singh. Concerned, Rajkaran reached out to Singh's wife, Sukhdeep, for information. She revealed that she had reported her husband missing to the police 2 days after he left. Singh hadn't said goodbye to his parents or provided any clues about his whereabouts. Since his sudden departure, no one, including his employer, had heard from him. Rajwinder Singh was scheduled for a morning shift on Monday, October 22, and other shifts afterward, but never appeared for them. No one at Innisfil Hospital heard from him until a week later, on Monday, October 29. On that day, he left a perplexing voicemail for Leslie Harris, the hospital's director of nursing and midwifery, announcing his resignation. He expressed his apologies and mentioned that he was still recovering from stress and had no intention of returning to his family in Innisfil or work anytime soon. Despite his family's dependency on his income, Singh made no financial arrangements for them and kept his severance pay. Detectives examining travel and immigration records discovered that, as Rajkaran had been informed, Singh flew to Sydney on Monday, October 22, at 5:05 p.m. to visit his sister. However, his journey didn't end there. After staying one night at her place, he proceeded to Sydney Airport on Tuesday, October 23. CCTV footage captured him boarding an Air India flight to Delhi at 10:45 a.m. Singh had told his sister he was going to India for a few days without providing a reason. Indian records verified his arrival in Delhi, but showed no trace of him after he left the airport. By tracing the ticket purchased back to a travel agent, detectives obtained a recording of the phone conversation between Singh and the agent. He contacted the travel agent at 11 a.m. on the morning of his departure, expressing a need for the earliest flight available from Cairns to Delhi. "I need a one-way ticket because my grandfather is really sick," Singh insisted. In reality, this was a fabrication. His grandfather was in good health. None of Singh's relatives in India had heard from him, and he hadn't returned to his hometown village. Detective Superintendent Murray Taylor was stationed with the Australian Federal Police at the High Commission in New Delhi. His duties included collaborating with Indian law enforcement on issues concerning Australians in the area. In November 2018, Queensland Police contacted Detective Murray to help locate an Indian national who had fled Cairns weeks earlier. Detective Murray liaised with various agencies, ranging from India's Central Bureau of Investigation to local officers in Punjab, Singh's region of origin. Despite these efforts, Singh remained elusive. Unable to apprehend or interview their primary suspect, Queensland detectives pressed on with the investigation. On Saturday, November 10th, they searched Singh's residence for potential evidence, such as a murder weapon, blood-stained clothing, or any item linking Singh to Toyah Cordingley's murder. Although knives were seized and tested, none were found to have been involved in the crime. While they didn't find anything directly connecting Singh to the crime, police collected DNA samples from him for comparison purposes. The profile found on a stick protruding from Toyah's burial site matched Singh's DNA, and was 3.7 billion times more likely to be Singh's than anyone else's. This statistic suggests that only 2 or 3 individuals globally would share this DNA profile. Similarly, DNA found on bark recovered from the crime scene was 42 million times more likely to belong to Singh than any other person. The DNA recovered from Toyah Cordingley's fingernails was a mixed profile with multiple contributors. A sample from the top of Toyah's left hand contained both her DNA and that of an unidentified person. This unknown DNA was 26 times more likely to belong to Singh than a random individual, yet this likelihood ratio was considered too low to be significant. Singh's DNA was absent from Indy's leash or collar. However, the unknown DNA appeared on Indy's leash. As detectives worked on building a case against Rajwinder Singh, the community held a vigil for Toyah, mourning her senseless murder and fearing her killer remained at large. In early December 2018, about 7 weeks into the investigation, media reports revealed that police had identified an Indian national as their lead suspect. Although Rajwinder Singh wasn't named in these reports, it was disclosed that the suspect was no longer in the country. While police did not comment on the story and indicated that the leak could jeopardize their investigation, this news was deeply unsettling for the residents of Cairns and the neighboring towns. The notion that the murderer might avoid justice for such a heinous crime fueled public anger and united the community. 3 weeks after Toyah's murder, 200 residents visited Wangetti Beach to stand against the violence that claimed Toyah's life. They carried flowers and formed a human chain along the sand as a symbol of resilience and solidarity. A smoking ceremony, an indigenous cultural practice involving the burning of native plants for cleansing, purification, and protection, took place as roses, lilies, and sunflowers were cast into the water. Some people used small stones to spell out Toyah's name on the sand and surrounded it with various flowers. A roadside memorial also appeared near where Toyah's car had been parked, but the community's efforts didn't end at commemorating Toyah. They embarked on a quest for justice in her memory. Aware that the main suspect had fled the country, Wayne Trimble crafted an advertisement for the local newspaper advocating for a bumper sticker campaign seeking justice. A local print shop owner responded to the ad by printing bumper stickers featuring Toyah in bold black letters, followed by "The community will never give up" in yellow font, along with a final line providing Crime Stopper's number and urging, "Tell us what you know, not who you are." Yellow sunflowers adorned the corners of the stickers, catching the attention of locals who began placing them on their cars. Soon, these stickers became a common sight across the region. Tourists visiting the area would often learn about the case upon seeing Toyah's stickers prominently displayed on numerous vehicles. Eventually, over 250,000 stickers were printed and disseminated nationwide. Businesses in Far North Queensland joined the effort by erecting billboards and flying banners with similar messages. This campaign arguably brought more attention to an unsolved case than any other in the region's history, making Toyah's name well known among local residents. The print shop owner mentioned to ABC News that Toyah's story had become ingrained in Cairns' collective memory, ensuring she would never be forgotten in the town. While the grassroots bumper sticker campaign was generating attention and pressure in Queensland, the same couldn't be said for India. Australian investigators expressed frustration over the lack of interest from Indian authorities, as the case received little media coverage there, and it seemed that local police were unmotivated to search for Singh. Queensland police worked with Interpol and Indian authorities in their efforts to locate Rajwinder Singh, but without success. In early December 2018, Singh's father traveled to India in search of his son, but found no trace of him. None of Singh's relatives living in India had heard from him, and he made no contact with his family or friends back in Australia. It was as if he had disappeared entirely. As months turned into years without updates, hundreds of police officers dedicated countless hours to the case, but were constrained by international laws, requiring adherence to India's slow legal process. In March 2021, an extradition request for Singh's arrest was issued, and finally, roughly 18 months later in October 2022, it was signed, allowing Australian investigators to take action on Singh. On Thursday, November 3, over 4 years after Toyah's tragic death, Rajwinder Singh was identified as the main suspect. The Queensland government also announced a $1 million reward for information leading to his capture, marking the highest reward ever offered in the state. Toyah's parents responded positively to this development, with Vanessa Gardiner expressing to the ABC that Toyah would feel honored by such efforts. She expressed hope for the call notifying them of his capture and encouraged Singh to surrender if he learned of this plea. Detective Inspector Sonia Smith emphasized the importance of just one person stepping forward with Singh's location, noting that they welcome information from anywhere globally. To facilitate this process, Queensland Police organized a team of 5 officers fluent in Hindi and Punjabi to manage incoming tips from India through WhatsApp. Several detectives also traveled to India to collaborate with local law enforcement directly. To maximize outreach, the substantial reward was widely advertised across India via flyers, media, and social networks, aiming to spur anyone with knowledge to come forward. Exactly 3 weeks after the reward's announcement, a crucial tip-off reached the Australian High Commission in New Delhi, revealing that Singh was hiding in Rana Pratap Bagh, a peaceful family-oriented neighborhood in the city's north. He had found refuge in a Sikh Gurdwara, a religious and community hub for local Sikhs. On the morning of Friday, November 25, Detective Superintendent Murray Taylor from the AFP witnessed Indian authorities approaching the Gurdwara. They found and arrested Rajwinder Singh inside, noting his changed appearance since his departure from Australia. His once short hair had grown long and was now wrapped in a turban, following a key tenet of the Sikh faith. He had also cultivated a long beard with a salt and pepper hue. Rajwinder Singh was taken into custody, awaiting his extradition hearing. Ultimately, he chose not to challenge the extradition, asserting in Indian media that he was innocent of the murder accusation and wished to disclose all details in the Queensland courts. The reasons for his delayed disclosure remained unclear, but his decision avoided a protracted legal process. It also moved him from Toyah Jail, a vast prison complex in South Asia, where he would have remained until the hearing concluded. A $1 million reward was distributed among several individuals who provided the tip-off on Singh's whereabouts, though their identities remained confidential. In March 2023, Singh was flown back to Cairns and charged with murder. He was held at the Cairns watch house and placed in a cell with another inmate named Jacob. Jacob started a conversation, mentioning he had come to Cairns to visit his mother, but sometimes struggled with his temper. After some time, Jacob expressed relief at being cellmates because Singh seemed pleasant. When Jacob inquired about Singh's charges, Singh responded, "They claim I killed someone." He explained that while he hadn't murdered Toyah, he was present at Wangetti Beach and witnessed the crime. "I didn't see their faces. They were masked," Singh explained. Although unaware of the killer's identities, Singh feared they might target him for witnessing their actions. This fear prompted his immediate departure from Australia, drawing police attention when his car was linked to the crime scene. "That's why they think I ran away, because I did something or killed the person," Singh explained. He never clarified why he hadn't reported Toyah's murder to the authorities, but told Jacob he'd been in shock ever since and was a gentle person who never raised his voice. Singh also shared his spiritual beliefs, saying that in this life, everyone is accountable for their actions in the next, and current experiences are shaped by past lives. Singh was unaware that the fellow inmate he was speaking with was actually an undercover police officer, and their entire 3-hour conversation was being secretly recorded. The week Singh returned to Australia, Toyah's cherished dog, Indy, had to be put down due to cancer. Saying goodbye to Indy was another devastating loss for Toyah's loved ones. Rajwinder Singh spent almost 2 years in custody until his trial commenced at the end of February 2025. Now 40 years old, Singh pleaded not guilty and chose not to testify. Due to the case's notoriety in the region, a larger jury pool than usual was assembled. Before entering the courtroom for selection, potential jurors had to fill out a questionnaire to determine their impartiality. They were asked if they had ever displayed a Toyah bumper sticker or if they were members of any social media groups related to the case. Ultimately, 8 men and 4 women were chosen to hear evidence from over 70 witnesses across 12 days. Forensic evidence included DNA findings, Toyah Cordingley's phone data, and information about Singh's Alfa Romeo, along with testimonies from those close to both Toyah and Singh. When Singh's wife, Sukhdeep Kaur, testified, she admitted that seeing her husband in the courtroom marked the first time she had seen him since he fled the country more than 6 years earlier. Neither she nor their children had heard from him since his departure. The recorded conversation between Singh and the undercover officer at the Cairns watch house was also played for the court, with transcripts provided to the jury. The defense urged them to consider if someone else might be responsible for Toyah's death, including her boyfriend, Marco Heidenreich. They portrayed Singh as a man trapped in an unhappy marriage who abandoned his family but was incapable of violence. He had been bullied at work and was already under stress when he witnessed Toyah's murder and reacted poorly. It was suggested he may have taken a roundabout route home to avoid pursuit by the real perpetrators before leaving Australia out of fear. After closing arguments from both sides, the jury began their deliberations. They deliberated for 2.5 days before sending a note to Justice James Henry on Tuesday, March 18, at 12:05 p.m., stating they could not reach a unanimous decision. The jury was questioned, is there any more evidence to review? Are there any further questions for the judge? All members replied no. We voted again but remained deadlocked, unable to reach a unanimous decision. Please advise. Justice James Henry noted that judges are typically hesitant to declare a hung jury. However, given the exhaustive discussions and lack of consensus, he decided to discharge the group, commending them for their efforts. No one could accuse you of not trying to resolve the case. This conclusion was deeply disappointing for Toyah's family and friends. Nonetheless, Rajwinder Singh was not released. He was scheduled for another trial. 8 months later, on Monday, November 10, 2025, Singh's retrial commenced under Justice Lincoln Crowley. Singh maintained his plea of not guilty and chose not to provide evidence in his defense. A rigorous selection process for impartial jurors took place, resulting in 10 men and 2 women, with 3 female reserve jurors. Following the initial trial, additional forensic testing was conducted on DNA samples from the crime scene. Specifically, DNA from Toyah Cordingley's fingernails underwent retesting for Y chromosome markers, which are exclusive to males and inherited paternally. One test indicated that 26 out of 27 genetic markers matched Singh's Y chromosome. A subsequent test showed a complete 27 marker match. Crown Prosecutor Nathan Crane addressed the absence of Singh's DNA on Indy's leash or collar. He suggested Singh might have forced Toyah to restrain Indy or used her clothes to cover his hands, while tying the leash, later disposing of the items, along with Toyah's phone and other belongings. The defense countered, highlighting the significance of missing DNA evidence from the leash, and criticized the prosecution for failing to test hairs found in Toyah's hand. The jury was presented with highly detailed evidence concerning the phone activity of Toyah Cordingley, alongside how detectives matched these data points with the journey taken by Rajwinder Singh's Alfa Romeo. Singh's wife, Sukhdeep Kaur, testified again, describing her unhappy marriage and how her husband vanished from her and her children's lives. Vanessa Gardiner recounted finding Toyah's dog tied to a tree, while Troy Cordingley shared the discovery of his daughter's burial site. Text messages spanning nearly a year between Toyah and her boyfriend Marco were submitted to demonstrate the normalcy and lack of conflict in their relationship. During the trial's second week, the jury visited Wangetti Beach to observe 9 key locations relevant to the crime, including where Toyah was buried and where her dog Indy was tied up. This involved a 4-kilometer walk from the southern car park to the northern end of the beach. The excursion was meant to provide jurors with essential context about the crime rather than serve as evidence. Once more, Singh's recorded conversation with an undercover officer was played in court. The defense challenged why Rajwinder Singh, known for his mild demeanor and no history of violence, would commit such a brutal crime against a stranger without apparent reason. They highlighted his steady employment as a nurse and his lifestyle choices as a vegetarian who abstained from alcohol, suggesting indicators of good character. His mother claimed that Singh wouldn't even harm an ant. The defense proposed that other men in the area might be more likely suspects, such as pig hunters with large knives or individuals with drug or mental health issues, often found at Wangetti Beach. 2 weeks into the trial, a juror sent a note to Justice Lincoln Crowley, raising concerns about statements made by the jury's foreperson. The note indicated the foreperson showed bias against the police and claimed to have decided despite the ongoing trial. He also mentioned having a history of violence and had been disrespectful to another juror. Once revealed, Singh's defense argued for declaring a mistrial. However, Justice Crowley disagreed, dismissed the foreperson, and decided that the trial would proceed without him. The case finally concluded in the first week of December, with both parties presenting their final arguments. The defense contended that it was implausible for Rajwinder Singh to have acted alone. How could he have overpowered both Toyah and her dog, Indy? They suggested that detectives had overlooked other, more plausible suspects. Meanwhile, the prosecution highlighted evidence that dismissed these other potential suspects through their phone records and CCTV footage. They argued that had it been one of those individuals, the police investigation would have been much simpler than pursuing Singh all the way in India. Nathan Crane stressed the significance of Singh's DNA found at the crime scene and Toyah's phone being linked to his car, actions only the murderer could execute. In his instructions to the jury, Justice Lincoln Crowley noted that establishing a motive wasn't essential for reaching a guilty verdict. On Friday, December 5, at 3:13 p.m., the jury began their deliberations, and by the afternoon of Monday, December 8, they reached a decision. Rajwinder Singh was found guilty of murdering Toyah. As the verdict was announced, the courtroom was filled with gasps and cries, and Toyah's father, Troy, expressed his anger. In stark contrast, Singh remained still and expressionless. Post-conviction, it was revealed that Singh had told different versions of events about that day on Wangetti Beach. Following his arrest in India, he presented a different narrative to authorities there. Several Indian news outlets reported that Singh confessed to carrying a kitchen knife and some fruit to Wangetti Beach. He encountered Toyah and Indy there and claimed they had an altercation when Indy began barking at him. Enraged by this, Singh admitted to repeatedly stabbing Toyah, burying her body in the sand, and tying Indy to a tree. This confession potentially explained how Indy was discovered, since Toyah's loved ones insisted she would never have restrained her dog in such a manner. Indy was not known for aggression towards people, so how she might have reacted in such a situation remained uncertain. Nevertheless, those closely involved with the case found the motive unconvincing. During the sentencing on Tuesday, December 9, Justice Lincoln Crowley shared his thoughts on why Singh may have killed Toyah. He suggested that Singh's behavior at the Cairns Central Shopping Center on the day of the murder led him to go to a secluded area of Wangetti Beach, where he continued to watch people with more sinister intentions. Justice Crowley remarked, "It's difficult to fathom what drove you to attack that defenseless young woman. The brutal nature of the attack suggests she might have caught you engaging in some disgraceful and embarrassing behavior at a secluded location, where your true character could be unleashed and your darker urges exposed. The likely scenario is that Ms. Cordingley confronted you while you were involved in some inappropriate activity, prompting a challenge from her. The fact that you took her mobile phone after killing her suggests she might have recorded or intended to report you. This aligns with investigators' and prosecutors' theories. Toyah's phone was never found, and its disappearance, along with Singh's movements toward a body of water, indicated he intentionally disposed of it. The logical reason for this action was to hide something incriminating on the phone. Justice Crowley also noted Singh's lack of remorse and his cowardly escape, which further tormented Toyah's family by shifting suspicion onto others. You tried to deflect blame onto others during your defense, particularly pointing fingers at Toyah's boyfriend, Marco Heidenreich. You cast doubt broadly, attempting to tarnish others' reputations and create false possibilities about the true perpetrator. I find the prospects of rehabilitation minimal. Your actions were extremely violent and beyond comprehension. You have not taken any responsibility, Crowley stated. In Queensland, murder carries a mandatory life sentence, with judges determining a minimum non-parole period. While the standard is 20 years, the aggravating circumstances in Singh's case resulted in Justice Crowley imposing a 25-year minimum term. Rajwinder Singh has filed an appeal, which is set to be heard in October 2026. Outside the courtroom, Vanessa Gardner addressed the media, expressing her gratitude toward the police, the community, and the verdict. She also spoke of her immense grief. For those who loved Toyah, the wait for justice spanned over 7 years, and they have finally seen it achieved. Vanessa stated, "Today marks an important conclusion in our journey, bringing justice for our Toyah. This event upended our lives for years, and we recognize that a cherished part of our fun, close-knit family is forever lost due to this individual's actions." Vanessa emphasized that her family would never forgive Rajwinder Singh, deliberately omitting his name. She mentioned that Toyah wasn't his only victim. Singh also harmed Marco Heidenreich and impacted his own family, with his wife and children suffering as collateral damage. Toyah Cordingley also spoke outside the court, saying, "Today's verdict provides a measure of justice, but for us true justice is unattainable because we now inhabit a world without Toyah, leaving it poorer. Yet Toyah will forever remain alive in our hearts and the hearts of many others." Toyah was Troy's only child, and the trauma from losing her and finding her body left him with several mental health challenges, including PTSD. Toyah is remembered as a loving, kind-hearted daughter, sister, and friend. She was close with both her parents and appreciated the upbringing they provided. In an interview with ABC, Troy reminisced about Toyah's joyful childhood, stating, "I have lasting images of Toyah spending alternate weeks with her mother and with my partner and me. Our backyard was always filled with laughter and happy children. I remember wonderful birthday parties and Christmas celebrations. She always felt fortunate to have 2 mums and 2 dads. Toyah blossomed into a beautiful, caring young woman, a source of pride for us all. The bond we shared as father and daughter is indescribable. Though I feel lost and empty inside, I cherish the memories of those 24 years. She deserved so many more." In the aftermath of Toyah's murder, several memorials were established across the region, reflecting the profound impact she had on Far North Queensland. The owners of K9 River Retreat boarding kennels in Kuranda, where Toyah had once worked, dedicated 50 acres of land as a permanent walking track, naming it Toyah's Walk. Created for people to enjoy with their dogs, Toyah's Walk includes memorials honoring Toyah and safety features like CCTV cameras and fencing to ensure walkers feel safe. At Paws and Claws Animal Shelter, where Toyah volunteered, she was remembered for her ability to soothe the most distressed dogs with ease and for her skill in handling larger and more energetic ones. With a government grant, they constructed a new shelter featuring a puppy nursery dedicated to Toyah's memory. Outside stands a boulder with a plaque that includes a photograph of Toyah, her name, and the inscription, "My sunshine doesn't come from the skies. It comes from the love that's in a dog's eyes." Inside, a mural adorns a wall, depicting Toyah alongside her dog Indy and cat Sally against a field of sunflowers, Toyah's favorite flower. Friends of the Cordingley family also established a permanent memorial at Wangetti Beach. This memorial comprises a hand-carved concrete boulder and a sculpture of Indy and Sally. A plaque behind the sculpture reads, "Toyah, be the change you want the world to be." Toyah's mother, Vanessa Gardner, spent countless hours meticulously painting the beachside memorial. It was officially unveiled before a large crowd on Saturday, October 19, 2019, nearly 1 year after Toyah's tragic death. Vanessa Gardner shared a message that was read aloud during the opening. "I would like to say thank you to all of you wonderful individuals who have gathered here today to pay tribute to our daughter Toyah. This past year has felt like enduring hell. Without the continuous love and support from our community and people worldwide, it would have been incredibly difficult." She further elaborated on the plaque's quote, "People often say, be the change you want to see. Toyah already understood this, so she chose to embody the world she wanted. She was so caring and loving toward all life, no matter what. A truly beautiful spirit, she was, a truly beautiful spirit of the world.